This girl died because her dad didn't like her dating this guy. We have heard many stories about people who died because of love, like Juliet and Romeo, St. Valentine and others. Many of us even believe Jesus also died out of love for everyone. But this isn't a story from a book. It's about a girl who died recently because she wouldn't stop loving a guy her parents didn't approve of. That day, her father hit her really hard, and everyone nearby heard her cry out. She was hurt very badly and died in a horrible way. Don't dwell on it too much because this guy was her boyfriend before she died. Even though they didn't do anything wrong, the girl's parents didn't approve of their relationship. She had a hard life because her parents always prevented her from loving this guy. It came to a time when her mother kicked her out completely, and she had nowhere else to go, and I was the one she ran to, so the girl used to stay with me. For them, it was not enough to just torment her and kick her out. One day her father beat her so badly, and this is how it ended up. Why would parents go so far as to take their child's life? Did this couple do something wrong? Not learning more about this would be a big mistake for someone who covers love stories. That's why I traveled to Kenya to meet this grieving guy. It wasn't easy because he had lost his girlfriend recently, but he tried to tell me everything about their sad story.
Majina ni Newton Kimaru.
My name is Newton Kimaru, but people know me as Kim FX on social media. I'm 22 years old and will be 23 soon. I grew up in Kenya and finished high school. I'm into Forex trading, which is why many people call me Kim FX. FX stands for Forex, which I think many people heard about. Newton is a smart guy. While many young guys his age spend time on the wrong things, he focuses on learning about internet business. Like everyone else, he also has a love story in his life. But for him, love turned into a source of pain.
Ningetaka kushare story.
I want to share a sad story about my girlfriend. It's tough for me to talk about. Faith was nearly 19, so when we first met, we became friends. As time passed, we fell in love and became a couple. Our parents found out about us because love isn't something you can hide. At first, I didn't see any problem with our relationship. Dating seemed fine to us, something we were allowed to do. But then, after our relationship grew stronger, Faith's mother started getting involved and tried to stop her from loving me, even though we hadn't done anything wrong. I didn't understand why. Despite her mother's interference, we were determined to stay together. But then, her mother's behavior got worse. She started mistreating Faith, throwing her clothes out and even kicking her out of the house. Faith had nowhere else to go but to me, so whenever she was thrown out, she'd call me to pick her up and take her home. This continued until Faith's mother finally kicked her out completely. Faith had to leave and came to live with me. The girl lived with her mother because her father worked in Nairobi and wasn't home often. However, the person she called her father was actually her stepfather, as her real father had separated from her mother, but was still alive. When things got bad at home, the girl had no choice but to run away to her boyfriend's place. What's surprising is that her stepfather, where he was, didn't seem to care or know much about what was happening at home.
So the time babake ako Nairobi, mamake alikuwa anamwambia story so.
Faith's stepdad lived in Nairobi and her mom used to update him about everything. That's when he got my number and Faith started using my phone to talk to him. One day, her dad called and wanted her to come home, so I decided to go with her. When she got back home, they told her she couldn't leave the house again. It's been a while since we spoke because they took away her phone to stop her from talking to me. But she managed to find another phone to call me. We figured out a way to talk without her parents knowing. I told her to send me a message saying, "Please call me," twice in a row from any other phone, and I'd know it was her. That's how we kept in touch.
Mama yake anafaa kuwe hapo, ndo nimwambie ndo nimerudisha msichana.
Right before this girl went back home, her mom kept calling and texting her, warning that things would get really bad if she returned. But since her stepfather insisted she go back home, she felt like she had no other option.
Na ofuchi pia mimi tulikuwa tunaongea na huyo biological father yake, mimi ndo time yenye alikuwa aenda alikuwa ameniambia mimi ndo nitaenda nimpandisha gari.
While Faith was staying with me, her dad would often urge her over the phone to return home. But Faith would tell him, "Daddy, you're in Nairobi, you don't know what's happening at home." She promised to go back once he left Nairobi. Once, Faith confided in me that her mother threatened to harm her if she returned home. I suggested she talk to her uncle about what her mother was saying. So, Faith went home with her uncle, but her mother repeated her threats upon their arrival. Her uncle then advised her to return to where she used to live for her safety. That's how Faith returned. About 5 days ago, Faith's mother sent me a number and asked me to give it to Faith. It turned out to be her biological father. Faith spoke to her real father and told him everything about her home situation and how they wanted to harm her because of our relationship. Her father was very upset and immediately insisted that she come live with him. It seemed like the solution to all their problems when Faith's biological father said he would take her to live with him. They started getting ready for Faith to go to her biological father's place. But surprisingly, this decision caused some very serious problems later on.
So iliendelea hivyo hadi Faith.
I'm not sure how it happened, but Faith seemed to be persuaded by her mother and changed her mind about living with her biological father. She later told me that she couldn't go live with him and hasn't spoken to him since. When I asked why, she said her mother forbade her from going. Things got worse when her stepfather found out her biological father wanted to take her away, which made him very angry. He started acting strangely, even though he wasn't like that before. When her father returned home from Nairobi, Faith went back home too, because her stepfather was back. We kept dating, but it was tough because her parents threatened to send her to a mental hospital for refusing to end our relationship. Then one evening, Faith called me urgently saying, "Baby, come here, it's urgent." It was raining heavily, but I was so worried that I found a way to get to her. What really happened? Newton had to find out what was wrong with Faith, so he borrowed his friend's motorcycle and rode through the pouring rain to get there. Despite the rain and mud, Newton reached Faith's home on the motorcycle, but when he arrived, what he saw shocked him.
Nilienda nikapata Faith amelala chini na alikuwa amejaa matope.
I found Faith lying on the ground when I got there. She had a wound in her hair, and she was covered in mud. She asked me to help her onto the bike because she was too weak to push. I helped her onto the motorcycle and she urged me to leave quickly. I asked if we should go home or to the doctor and she said we should go home first. I took her home, but I didn't go inside because I had to return the motorcycle. I told her to go in and that I would be back soon. She said it was okay and asked me to bring her coat when I returned. So, I left and came back with everything. When I returned, she asked me to wash her feet and hair. She had a lot of mud and cow dung in her hair, so I washed it for her, even though it wasn't easy. After that, we slept, and by morning, I could see she was feeling better.
Akaniambia ni sawa.
This time, something bad happened to the girl, but she didn't tell Newton about it, which wasn't usual. She looked scared to go back home, and Newton noticed that. He wondered why she was afraid and why she didn't want to talk about what happened to her.
So tulikaa naye hapa hivyo, nikamwambia juu.
We were at home and I could tell that something was bothering her. That day she was doing chores around the house, and when I returned from somewhere, I found that she had cooked a meal for us. We ate, and as night fell, we went to bed. But in the middle of the night, we heard someone knocking on the door, calling out Faith's name. When she heard it, she said it was her stepfather. I got up to check, and indeed it was him. He asked if Faith was there, and I confirmed that she was. He then demanded she put on her clothes and go with him. As Faith woke up, her father hit her with a punch. I immediately intervened, telling him not to hit her in my house. Eventually he left, saying, "I told you to break up with my daughter, but you refused to listen." After he left, he told Faith to go home, but she refused. However, feeling like I had no other choice, I urged her to go home, despite her resistance and her father's disrespect. There was no choice but to let the father take her away. The young man left behind had no clue what would come next. He thought it was just a normal thing, but little did he know it was the start of a whole new story. This turn of events was about to bring him great pain.
Babake alikuwa jaribu kumvuruta.
I didn't try to stop him from taking his daughter away. If it was someone else, I wouldn't have let them do anything like that. I told Faith, "Let's talk tomorrow," but she refused, insisting that if she was leaving, we would go together. Her father then threatened in the Kikuyu language, "I can kill you and forget you forever." So Faith left with him, but she later told me that he was the one who hurt her when I found her lying on the ground in the mud. That was the last time I saw Faith. Since then, I haven't seen her again. They left, and I went back to sleep. The next day, I went to my friend who taught me about online trading. While I was there, someone kept calling me many times on the phone. I didn't answer to avoid disturbing others, but by 5 o'clock, I still hadn't heard anything about Faith. The man kept calling him, but he didn't think there was any problem. It seemed normal to him, but the bad news was on its way to reach him.
Nilimsha naongea na simu, nikaona ameniita tena.
The phone kept ringing, but I didn't pay much attention to it. As I was walking, I spotted one of my friends who rides a motorcycle. I thought maybe he wanted to offer me a ride, but I explained that I wasn't heading anywhere far. However, he seemed insistent on talking to me, so I stopped to listen. He asked me, "Have you heard?" Confused, I asked him what he meant. Then he delivered the shocking news. He had seen a police car at Faith's house, and Faith was dead. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. It felt impossible to accept. I was numb with disbelief. Without fully comprehending, I found myself heading home. Along the way, I noticed a police car and instinctively stopped to see where it was going. To my horror, it was headed towards Faith's home. That's when the reality started sinking in, and I began to fear that what my friend had said might be true. That day turned out to be my last with Faith. This time, he hadn't witnessed it firsthand, and he was still confused, but sadly, it was true that the girl had passed away. What followed for Newton was trying to uncover the truth about what caused his girlfriend's death. However, it only led to more pain and sorrow.
So sijui nilikaa chini kwa lami ama nilifanya nini.
My heart felt like it was breaking. I couldn't bring myself to go to her home, but I heard people saying that on that dreadful day, Faith was brutally beaten. The screams echoed throughout the neighborhood. She was beaten so severely that she lost her life. When they brought her body, it was a horrifying sight. Her hair had been shaved off, and her body was covered in wounds as if she had been attacked by animals. Faith died in a terrible manner, and I knew she didn't deserve any of it. It's been a few days since Faith was taken from us. I loved her deeply, and she loved me just as much. Whenever we were together, we were inseparable. If only her father hadn't come to take her away, we would still be together, dreaming of a bright future ahead. May the soul of this lovely girl rest in peace. Today, her stepfather is facing justice to be punished for what he did. Since the day she passed, Newton's life has changed drastically, and he's constantly struggling because of this tragic event.
So babe, kitu naweza kusema, Mi nilikupenda sana.
I'm alone now, and I'm not sure if I'll ever be okay again. But I trust in God that things will get better, and Faith knows how much I love her. I've come here to hide because I've heard rumors that Faith's mother is spreading lies about me, and I fear for my safety. Today I'm feeling lost and unable to explain my emotions. I need someone to comfort me and help me come to terms with the fact that life must go on without Faith. If you have the kindness to reach out to me, you can find me on Instagram and Facebook under the name Kim Fex. Love can be beautiful, but it can also be complicated. They started out as a typical young romance, but faced challenges due to family disapproval. Let's honor this young girl who died because of love at such a young age, and let's comfort her boyfriend who is now in pain. Their story teaches us something important, especially for parents. It's not good to interfere in our children's relationships. Sometimes the decisions we think are wise can cause problems that end up with what we can't handle. Let love be love. Thanks for watching. I am Simon Greenwood, and this is Aframax English. Please don't forget to subscribe.